Hello and welcome along to another episode of My Football Story from the Honest Football Podcast. This week, Charlie speaks to women's football legend Jenna Schillaci about her career at Tottenham Hotspur as she just announces her retirement. Jenna was a key part of the side that went from the amateur ranks all the way to the WSL and the elite level of the game with Spurs, and has a number of fantastic memories to draw back on from her time at Spurs. Jenna also talks to us about her recent retirement and what she plans to do with new company Next Gen in the next stage of her career, as well as reflecting on some of her favourite football memories, some of the best players she's played with, and some of her favourite moments in the game. If you enjoy this episode, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe for regular content from the Honest Football Podcast. And you can keep up to date with everything we're doing over on Twitter at HonestFootball3. But we really hope you enjoy this one. This is Jenna Schillaci's football story.
I'm delighted to say that Jenna's joining us now. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and speak to us. I really appreciate you doing that.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So obviously you had an amazing career. You know, we're going to talk about all of that in a bit. But what to sort of do, like we do with all pros, really, is just go back to the beginning. So what was your first memory of football, whether it be playing, watching? Where did it all sort of begin for you, really?
Well, when I was growing up, there were no teams around, so I kind of had to follow my brothers around and go and watch them play. But my earliest memory would be playing in a muddy old field with like a shirt down to my knees, playing up a few years. So yeah, that was a horrible winter's day, but that was my earliest memory. And I went round to my mum's the other day and she was like, that's how I always picture you, as that first, and you loved it, they wanted to take you off, but they couldn't because you loved it so much. So that's my earliest memory.
And what about watching? Do you remember like his first game that you sort of watched, whether it be on TV or at the ground or?
I remember first going to White Hart Lane. I can't remember what game it was, but my family had season tickets. So we used to go every week. So yeah, I have fond memories of going down there with my family and going in early to watch them warm up. I was just obsessed with it. I just wanted to be out there as well. But no, yeah, so I've grown up in a massive Spurs family. So yeah, not always the best memories, sometimes painful, but
yeah, no, of course, yeah. I suppose there's lots of ups and downs when team like Spurs and that in that sense. So obviously, before we go on to actually obviously went on to play for Spurs, but I'm just thinking about when you were at school and stuff like that. Were you that much better than everyone else at school, or was it a bit later on that maybe you sort of showed a bit more prowess for football?
I used to play with the boys at school at like lunchtime, and at first they were a bit funny, but when I think they realised that I could play, they used to like include me like I was one of the lads. In terms of any of the girls playing football, no one else was really interested in it. Like I said, I was just obsessed with it. It's all I ever wanted to do. I'd get home from school and play with my brothers, and there weren't any teams around at the time in school either, so I wasn't allowed to play any matches. And then I think when I was in secondary school, my dad set up a team, and it was just me and my friends. It was just a local team. I managed to drag them all in. It was down at a club where my younger brother played, so we used to go down for the same night. But yeah, I think I was always, might have been better than some of the boys that I played against. But yeah, no, they always were really accepting. It was kind of just the norm, because I just used to always be playing with them. So when I played with the girls team, the competition, there wasn't really that great a competition. You had to travel miles to find a team to play against. So it's completely different to what there is out there now, where there's so many girls teams. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely changed a lot since I was growing up.
Yeah. I know, thank you I appreciate you being honest about that. So you obviously went to Spurs and you started playing women's football at 16. What would you say from a footballing perspective was the biggest difference, apart not just the sort of standard necessarily, but going from playing with your own sort of age groups and then going into adult football?
From what I remember, when I was playing the girls teams, I did used to just run around rings. I could go just kind of took over, but obviously the women's game was slightly different. And I was so much younger than the girls that I was playing against. Standard wasn't the best. The facilities, the training, it wasn't great compared to where we are now. But like I said, I just loved it. We were training like in the middle of Tottenham on an evening. I think it was Tuesday and Thursdays we used to train at the last slot of the night. So my mum would drive me down there and read a book in her car, like even on the cold winter nights, and then get up and go for work. We wouldn't get home till like 11, and then I had school the next day. So that's how I remember my first time on at Spurs. It was just it was run by volunteers. There was one manager. I don't even think we had a physio, just a bucket and a sponge. I think it was the magic sponge. So we were playing in like the men's kit, but from 2 years before. So it was all out. Yeah, nothing fitted us. We had to pay to play back then. So you paid your subs and had one pair of boots that lasted you all season, kind of thing.
I do know what you mean. My sister played. She's a bit younger than me. She played for Luton Town, which is sort of similar sort of time. And it was I do remember that sort of thing. Like you say, it was very it's a world away from where it is now in that sense. So, but I suppose then you sort of went on to university. Was the opportunity to sort of play there much at all, or obviously I know there's varsity teams and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I left and then I went to QPR for a bit because I also played for them when I was growing up, and then I got interest from a semi-professional team at the time. It was called Langford Ladies. Yeah, they're not around at the time anymore, but it was a great team, and it was like my first chance of playing semi-professional. And then it happened at the same time that I'd started university, and I was in Greenwich at the time, and I think Langford were in Bedfordshire, and it was just too much of a commitment. So I had to make the decision then to stop playing at Langford because I couldn't really. Wanted to go to uni and get the most out of university and enjoy university life. So I played for the university team, captained the university team there, played for the English university team. Wow. Like I've said before, like I didn't really see it anything other than a hobby at the time. Like I knew I was good at it and I loved it, but I never, back then there wasn't the chance to be professional or anything. So I didn't in a million years think that I'd have any chance of turning professional, or in my time that women's football would be professional. So yeah, it wasn't until I left uni and then I spent a couple of years at Enfield and then rejoined Tottenham. So yeah, when I was at uni, I was just playing for the uni team and training there and using their gym. And
no, it's funny. I played for the adult team on a Saturday at Langford in Bedfordshire. So obviously, it was a bit of a, I can imagine it was a bit of a. It probably would have been around the same time actually. It was a bit of a trek though from obviously.
Yeah, it was miles from Greenwich, but it was a really good setup there. Yeah. The first taste of like professionalism. The team was brilliant. We were winning everything really. So yeah, it just wasn't the right time for me then.
If you don't mind me asking, that sort of decision at uni in that sense, I know going to America and that kind of thing, 'cause that was a bit more popular, wasn't it? Maybe a few years ago for, talented footballers here. Was that ever an option for you or not really in that sense?
It was one thing that I look back and I did regret not exploring. I did think of it, but I've always quite family orientated and I just didn't really want to be away from my family. That's why I only went to Greenwich for university. But no, that's one thing that I do wish that I maybe did explore, because at the time it was getting very big out there, and I know a lot of my friends who went out there. But now I think looking at the leagues, I think the WSL is attracting a lot of players from abroad now. So I think now is the right time to be in England, around the WSL. I think the quality there is just improving, and I think the signings that are being made already for this new up and coming season just proves that. So yeah, it's something that I always do, wonder what if, but I wouldn't change it for my university life anyway.
No, of course. No, I think you're right. It did there seemed to be a shift in there of people not necessarily going over to America, like you say, to do that sort of thing. In terms of going, obviously, then you went, you went to Spurs, back to Spurs, sorry. What was the sort of, had it changed much even from when you were there at 16 to then when you sort of come back after sort of being at uni and Enfield and all of that sort of thing? Was there much of a change there or not?
There were still some familiar faces like the volunteers who worked and run the club, Glenn Weaver, June and Val. They were still there and they were there the first time around. Other than that, it was completely different. There was no one else around that played in that team. Oh, bar one. There was one lady still there, Jill. And then, I remember turning up because I was ready. After I left Enfield, I was ready to give up football. I wasn't even going to play anymore, but it was only because some of my friends were going down there, and I was in America at the time on holiday, and I remember them saying, come down, it's like a new setup, it's really good there, you might enjoy it. So I went down and I met Karen, and there was just Karen, the physio, and a coach, Jojo. There were loads of girls there, and I watched the training session, then I took part, and then I was there ever since. There was a shift. We were still paying ourselves, and it was still that in that sense, but the training improved, and there were a lot of people around it, volunteers working really hard to improve it. And so that the minute I was there, I knew that it was the club for me, and there was no need for me to hang up my boots just yet.
So did you sort of find, was it a challenge to balance that commitment with work? I know maybe not so much earlier on, but I suppose as the seasons progressed, obviously quite a few promotions and things, but how did that sort of start in the early days maybe?
Yeah, the early days, my work, I've been very lucky in that I work for a charity called the London Playing Fields Foundation, and my boss and my colleagues, they've been great ever since I joined there. So I've been there for 12 years now, and they're very flexible, and they've just pushed me to do everything. So it was never an issue for me if I had to leave early to go to training or to matches. It's never been an issue. I'd say over the last 5 or 6 seasons, when it did start to get a lot more serious and we were semi-professional, training 3 nights a week, it was hard to balance everything. I was working 9 to 5:30 Monday to Friday. We were training 3 nights a week, so it was quite full on. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, up until 10:30 at night, and then playing on the Sunday. And obviously, we were playing all over England, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was challenging, but I think we had such a good group of girls, and we knew what we were on the brink of achieving. Where it just didn't feel like we just loved being there, and it wasn't. We had to make sacrifices. I mean, we saw each other more than we saw our own families in the last couple of seasons. And I know people that did drop out over the seasons. Like, I've seen a lot of players come and go, maybe due to their work or, just not being able to commit to it or having the support around them. But I've been so lucky in the fact that my work have supported me, my family have been there if ever I need anything. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but it was worth every single challenge. We would never have got to where we are now if we didn't went the extra mile with everything we did. So yeah, I don't regret any of it. It's the best thing I've ever done.
No, definitely. No. I think it's very admirable. And I suppose, like you say, maybe in the early days when, you quite a turnover of your team, and that it can be quite sort of disheartening, even at grassroots level where I was involved. I imagine it's even more so with yourself when you get higher up. But with that sort of on an individual level, how did your sort of personal game have to develop as you progressed through?
Yeah, I've changed completely, really. Obviously, the higher up you go, the training load changes completely. What's required from you on a match day, like just the demands, like the physical demands and the mental demands, you notice it so much the higher up you go. And obviously I've seen it from grassroots where, it's more of like a hobby. You turn up, and then the game, you don't realise how in depth the game actually gets. But I had made a lot of, I'd say probably 6 seasons ago, once we started to win and we started to attract new players, I knew that because I was always quite older than the girls that were there, so I knew that I had to put the extra mile in, work a bit harder, and make sacrifices and just change like things like the rest, recovery, what I was eating, what I was drinking, just like my lifestyle choices. I missed out on friends' birthdays and stuff. It was all worthwhile, but yeah, I definitely changed my training. I remember maybe like 7 years ago, I think I was on the bench for a couple of games, but I knew deep down like I wasn't working as hard as I could. So after training, I mean, I wouldn't recommend this to anyone now. Listen to your coaches, but I would get home and I'd get home and then go for an extra run and stuff. And I just like really upped up my training, and then I was back in the team, and then I was never out of it. So yeah, it takes a lot of mental strength, and I think I've got a lot stronger mentally. I think that's a massive part of the game. So yeah, I've adapted, and I've grown stronger as a player and a person. And yeah, I've just taken on every bit of advice that I've ever been given by like our strength and conditioning coaches, nutritionists, our coaches. So yeah, I've just soaked up every bit of information and just tried to be as best as I can.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your honesty of that. Actually, I think it's quite easily overlooked sometimes nowadays, isn't it, about the mental side of the game and
yeah.
So I think you're sort of a great testament to that. Just going on a bit then, so that sort of 16-17 season, so things have started to come into place then, and winning a quadruple. Just from an outsider's perspective, as a football fan and never played at the elite level, what's that mindset like? I know it sounds silly, but maybe once you've start to build up a bit of momentum, how do you keep yourself going after you say you've won one cup and then the league, do you know what I'm getting at? Like, how do you what's that mindset like in a team like that?
Yeah, I think it's like once you win one, we just wanted to, there was something that clicked with us and we were like, we can do this. We want to win them all. It was just a bit addictive, really. Winning is addictive. Once you win it, you just want some like more and more and more. And we were untouchable that season. We had an absolutely great season. We had the girls there. It was just a great group of people, and I think we were the only team in that league at the time. We were training an extra session,
right? And
you could tell that come match days, because towards the end of like the last 15 minutes or something, where the other teams were tiring, we were we were still going full steam ahead. I think it makes a difference when you're all just enjoying it. And we realised that we had something really special. And once we won the first one, and then the next week after we had the second one, I think that season as well, there was one cup that we did lose. It was against Charlton, and
Right.
we just didn't take our chances. And I remember we were all devastated, but we'd already won, I think, 2 cups before it. But that just shows the group that we had, that we were winners, and I'm not really hurt. And I think that spurred us on to go on and win the league that season, where we got to do it at White Hart Lane in front of all our friends and families, which was amazing. So yeah, it was kind of addictive, and we knew it was ours to lose. We knew the quality we had, and everyone's confidence was just sky high, and I think that plays a big part in it as well.
Yeah. Is there any point during that season where there's any sort of fear at all? I know it sounds silly, but, because maybe you set that bar, and going into the next season then, I suppose, how do you follow that up?
No, I don't. I always felt like we were going to win. Like every time we stepped on the pitch, there wasn't a moment. Like you just knew that someone would produce an amazing detail. Like we were just really confident that season. And like I said, I think that's a massive part of it. We had the winning mentality. Our coaches would, they were great. They'd show us before cup finals. They would put together video pieces of us and like all the great work we'd done throughout the season. And it really motivates you, and it just reminds you of, what you're doing and why you're doing it. I don't think that season. I think that season we were just very confident. We put in the extra work, and it shows. And then following on from that season, we attracted some new quality players as well. And we never stood still. The team was always progressing. Like the coaches, they're always kicking on. Even if we would win by a big margin, the next day we'd be in training, it'd be like wiped off, and then we start again for the next match. So yeah, I think if you look at our progress for the last 5 seasons, we've never been happy with just winning the league and then being comfortable in WSL2. We've always wanted to increase, and I think that shows for how short a time we were in WSL2. I mean, there's teams that have been in there for started, whereas we were there for 2 seasons and out of it. So yeah, I think it's a testament to the players and the coaching staff there.
You don't always get an insight into such a successful team, whatever sport it is. So I appreciate you sort of opening up about that. On a sort of a personal level then, that journey of going from, where you like we mentioned about 16 to then eventually going to the sort of professional ranks, was there any part of you that was doubting the choice to do that? And what I mean is obviously, as you mentioned earlier, I know you had a good employer, but there's still that balance of work and, that sort of thing. Was that ever a fear, or was it just the moment that was on the table you were going to take that sort of opportunity, really?
No, I was never worried about it at all. I knew that my work would support me, and it was just myself as well. Every year I was improving as a player. Even up until this last year, I probably improved the most I ever have as a 35-year-old. So no, for me, I was just, there was no doubt at all. Of course, I'd worked so hard for it. I was never going to give up the opportunity. If it was there, I was always going to take it. It was always a dream of mine, but it was a dream that I didn't think was possible in my era, kind of thing. So for me, there was no doubt I was always going to go for it.
Yeah, no, I think I appreciate that, and I think I suppose you've got to back yourself, haven't you? If you're going to make that decision, like you've got to back your own ability, and you sort of So sort of moving up to a bit more of the current day. So obviously that last season, obviously some amazing sort of developments in the game, and I suppose you've been at the sort of forefront of that. Just on a personal level, you've obviously said now that you sort of hung up your boots, for want of a better phrase. Were there any offers off the back of that, like elsewhere? And what I mean is you're at the very top of the level of the game.
I had a few offers off the back of it, but for me, I've lived my dream with Tottenham and with the team I love, and it would just feel so, I don't know, it would feel so too weird for me to go and play for anyone else. I've loved my time there. I think I've done my bit there. I've done things that I could never have even dreamed of a few years ago. So for me, I think I've given enough to the women's game now, and I felt ready. And I always remember someone saying to me, "You'll know when it's ready," and I never had that feeling.
Yeah,
never had it before, but I did have it this season, and it just felt like the right time. I think Spurs are in such a good position now. The players they've got, they're amazing. They've got some great experienced players. They've got some really quality young players coming through. So it was the right time, and now I'm looking forward to watching the team grow as a fan now.
You mentioned about the sort of the women's game and your sort of mark on that. Obviously, like you say, playing in some incredible stadiums and things like that now, and actually some amazing developments. And we try and sort of keep on top of that, with our podcasts and stuff. But without putting you on the spot, in your eyes, what sort of have been the positive developments, and also maybe how could the game improve a bit? And I don't want to get you in trouble. I'm not our sort of prime or anything, but do you know what I mean?
Personally, I think for our first season in WSL, we've played in some amazing stadiums. We've had some great fixtures. So we've done, our first match was at Stamford Bridge, which was incredible. I just remember leading the team out there, being probably one of my proudest moments, just having a little flashback in the tunnel to play and as a 16-year-old to now leading my team out there, and the crowd there was massive. So then from there we went on to West Ham, played at West Ham's ground, and then obviously at the Tottenham Stadium. I think putting on occasions like that and the crowds that did turn up to those matches, it shows if you do put the games in these big stadiums, that the fans will come. There is an appetite for it. So I think that's been great, and I think hopefully the way it can be improved is that those occasions aren't so much special occasions anymore. They are the norm for women's football, because the game deserves it, and the players, it's quality, and the women's game is more like a family day out. We spend time with the fans after, and you really interact. So yeah, I've noticed that's been a massive change this season, just the fan bases and the following and the interest. Obviously everything can always be improved. Yeah, so I think putting on the games in bigger stadiums where people will come and watch, I think that can only improve the game, because the appetite is there for it, as the attendances have shown this season.
Just before we move on to the sort of last bit, which is the sort of quick fire questions, tell us about what you're doing now. So obviously I know that you started a sort of business called Next Gen, and just tell us a bit more about that, and how people can engage with that.
Yeah, so I've always enjoyed talking to the younger girls, going in and doing training sessions, and I've got a passion for it. And me and my friend were sitting around a couple of weeks ago, and we just come up with this idea of empowering a next gen. The idea is, at the minute, due to the current restrictions, getting online, doing virtual one-to-one sessions or small group sessions, just getting, and then Q&A sessions, so the girls can ask anything they want to ask, anything they want to know about, professional life or grassroots life, or how I got involved, or anything. And the idea is to build up their confidence. That it's kind of like active screen time, so they're not playing on their computers. So yeah, it's early stages at the moment, but we've just launched it last week, and we've had a really good uptake of it. So yeah, we're busy this week getting all the taster sessions in. And the idea, eventually, it'll be an online platform where anyone can go on, and there'll be content, not just fitness, like health and nutrition. Yeah, so we're just in the early stages, but hopefully it will be a success.
And if anyone wants to sort of engage with that at all, where would they find, where's the best place to sort of go to look for that sort of stuff?
So we've launched our Instagram page, it's Train Next Gen, and then also on my Twitter there's a link to it, so it's at Train Next Gen.
Fantastic. What we always do is we finish with some quick fire questions. So I know some of these might be difficult for you, because I know you had such an amazing career, but we'll sort of we'll try and get to as many as we can. I think I probably know the answer to this one, but your favourite ground that you've ever played at?
The new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, I'd have to go with. It's incredible. So yeah, that 100%.
I'm not trying to be divisive when I ask this, but your favourite manager that you've played under? You don't have to answer if you don't want to, if it's going to be too difficult in that sense.
It'd have to be Karen and Juan. I mean, I've been there for the only managers I can remember.
Yeah. The best player you've played with and against?
Against, I'd probably say, God, there's been a few. Probably Beth England. And with, I would say, Becky Spencer in goal.
And then the final question. So this series originally started out as like my favourite game. So we would just get people from fans and stuff and talk about their favourite football match. But obviously, because you've been a pro and played at the elite level, we'll sort of give you two. So it'd be your favourite game that you've played in, and then also your favourite game that you've watched. Now that could have been on TV, or you could have been in the ground. So I don't know which one you want to kick off with, but yeah, your favourite game as a player and one that you've watched.
Favourite game I played in would be our first match in the WSL against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. We lost 1-0, but we played so well. We were quite unlucky to come away with nothing. The best game I've watched would probably be, it was the Man United who were they playing when they won the Champions League? I just remember being really small.
Oh, Bayern Munich.
Yes, and they
Yeah.
came back and they just smashed it. And that forever. I'm not a Man United fan, but I'll forever remember that match.
It's one of those two. I think there's only been a couple where I've sort of, a team you're not supporting, you still sort of jump out your seat.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
So
yeah, that was a great match.
Jenna, thank you so much for giving up your time. I can't honestly thank you enough. It's been absolutely brilliant. I really appreciate you sort of doing that. Just really quickly, if people wanted to follow you and things like that, where's the best place to engage with you personally? I know you mentioned your business, but your sort
I'm on Instagram, so it's Schillaci15, and then also I'm on Twitter, which I think is just Jenna Schillaci.
Thank you so much for that, and I appreciate you giving up your time for us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.